The first bites seem to confirm a smart choice. The plate is colorful. There's salad, protein, whole grains, and fruit for dessert. From the outside, everything conveys the image of a healthy diet. Yet, a few hours later, a difficult-to-explain fatigue sets in. Concentration decreases, energy disappears, minor colds appear frequently. Hair seems to lose strength, skin no longer looks the same. And little by little, these signs become part of the routine, as if they were merely a consequence of stress, age, or the rush of modern life. But what if the problem is hidden in a place where almost no one usually looks? There is a form of malnutrition that doesn't attract attention. It doesn't necessarily leave a person underweight. It doesn't cause intense hunger or extreme weight loss. On the contrary, often it is present precisely in people who eat a lot, have several meals a day, and believe they are giving their bodies everything they need. Experts have given this phenomenon a name: hidden hunger. It's called that because its effects often remain invisible for years. While proteins, fats, and carbohydrates provide energy and satiety, vitamins and minerals work silently behind the scenes. They are what allow thousands of chemical reactions to occur every second within the body. Without these small parts, the body continues to function, but never at its maximum potential. It's like filling a car with quality fuel but forgetting essential engine components. The vehicle still runs, but it loses performance, consumes more fuel, malfunctions, and, over time, wear and tear begins to appear. The most intriguing thing is that this problem is not restricted to regions marked by food scarcity. In recent decades, researchers have observed a surprising paradox. While rates of overweight and obesity have increased in many countries, micronutrient deficiencies have also remained common. In other words, it is possible to consume excess calories and still provide the body with few vitamins and minerals. How did this happen? The answer begins long before the supermarket, fad diets, or processed foods. It involves the transformation of agriculture, the evolution of the food industry, changes in lifestyle, and even the way we have learned to define what it means to eat well. Throughout this investigation, each piece of this puzzle will fall into place. You will discover why a seemingly healthy dish doesn't always guarantee complete nutrition, what silent signals the body may emit when micronutrients are lacking, and what science really knows about this phenomenon that affects millions of people worldwide. But perhaps the most important discovery is this: hidden hunger doesn't usually arise from a single food, nor does it disappear with a miracle solution. It's the result of small habits that, repeated every day, can build health, or create almost imperceptible deficiencies. So the question that will guide this entire investigation remains: how can someone eat enough, believe they are well nourished, and yet live for years with a nutritional deficiency without realizing it? The answer begins with a story that completely changed how humanity produces, chooses, and consumes its food. For almost all of human history, people's greatest concern was simply obtaining enough food to survive. Hunting could fail. Harvests depended on the weather. Harsh winters, prolonged droughts, and wars often meant scarcity. In that context, consuming calories was a matter of life or death. But there was an important characteristic in this ancestral diet. Although limited in quantity, it used to be much more diverse than we imagine. Traditional peoples consumed different leaves, roots, wild fruits, seeds, legumes, fish, meats, eggs, and foods that varied according to the season. This variety naturally increased the supply of vitamins, minerals, and other bioactive compounds. This does not mean that nutritional deficiencies did not exist. Quite the contrary. Throughout history, several diseases that are now well understood arose precisely from the lack of specific nutrients. Sailors who spent months at sea without access to fresh fruit frequently developed scurvy, a disease caused by vitamin C deficiency. Its symptoms began subtly: fatigue, weakness, and muscle aches. Over time, Bleeding gums, difficulty healing wounds, and damage to various organs appeared. In other regions of the world, populations dependent almost exclusively on a single food also faced similar problems. Iodine deficiency favored the enlargement of the thyroid gland, forming goiter. Prolonged lack of vitamin D compromised bone formation. Iron deficiency reduced the blood's ability to transport oxygen, favoring anemia, fatigue, and decreased physical and mental performance. These experiences taught one of the first great lessons of nutritional science. It is not enough to satisfy hunger. The body needs a huge variety of nutrients to function properly. It was precisely in the 20th century that this knowledge began to transform dietary recommendations. Scientists identified vitamins, isolated essential minerals, and understood that extremely small quantities of these substances were capable of influencing practically all the body's systems. At the same time, another transformation was taking place. The industrialization of food profoundly modified society's relationship with food. Technological advances brought undeniable benefits. Large-scale production reduced episodes of famine in many countries, increased food preservation, and made various products more accessible. However, along with these changes, there was a gradual replacement of minimally processed foods with increasingly refined products. Whole grains began to be transformed into highly refined flours. Polished rice replaced less processed versions in many regions. Refined sugars and oils became abundant. Ready-made products began to occupy increasing shelf space and, little by little, also family tables. This process had a silent effect. During the refining of various foods, a significant portion of the naturally occurring fiber, vitamins, and minerals is reduced. In some cases, the industry enriches products with certain vitamins and minerals, an important strategy to prevent specific population deficiencies. However, this enrichment does not reproduce all the nutritional complexity found in foods in their less processed form. Meanwhile, another phenomenon began to gain strength. Eating habits began to be influenced by factors that went far beyond hunger. Advertising, convenience, the fast pace of cities, and the constant availability of food profoundly changed eating behavior. Eating ceased to depend solely on physiological need. It began to involve convenience, marketing, social habits, and preferences shaped since childhood. The result was a paradox that few could have predicted. For the first time in history, it became possible to consume a high number of calories daily without necessarily achieving an adequate intake of all essential micronutrients. The plate might seem plentiful, the stomach might feel full, but the nutritional quality of that food did not always match its quantity. It was in this context that researchers began to increasingly use the term hidden hunger. Not because food was absent, but because the components that allow the body to transform food into energy, repair tissues, strengthen the immune system, produce hormones, and keep thousands of metabolic reactions functioning in balance were lacking. Today, the concern of experts is no longer limited to the quantity of food available. The big question has become, what is really inside that food? And it is precisely at this point that a surprising detail emerges. Often, the body itself begins to send signals that something is missing. The problem is that these signals are usually so subtle and nonspecific that almost no one associates them with food. That's where the investigation becomes even more interesting. Imagine waking up after a full night's sleep and still feeling that your energy has never fully returned. Breakfast helps for a few hours, but even before noon, the body already feels sluggish. Concentration fluctuates. Small tasks require more mental effort than they should. By the end of the afternoon, tiredness is treated as normal. After all, who isn't tired these days? This is precisely one of the reasons why hidden hunger can remain invisible for so long. The signs caused by micronutrient deficiencies rarely appear dramatically at the beginning. Instead, they accumulate slowly. The body does its best to compensate for what is lacking. It redistributes resources, prioritizes essential functions, and postpones bigger problems. It's an efficient strategy to ensure survival, but it also makes it difficult to realize that something is wrong. Therefore, many people live for years with small nutritional deficiencies without suspecting their diet. The symptoms end up being attributed to stress, age, overwork, or simply routine. Fatigue is one of the most common examples. Producing energy within cells depends on a veritable team of vitamins and minerals. Nutrients such as B vitamins, iron, magnesium, and others participate in fundamental stages of this process. When any of these nutrients are insufficient, the body can lose efficiency. This doesn't mean that every tired person has a nutritional deficiency. Fatigue has numerous possible causes, such as sleep disorders, illnesses, medication use, and emotional factors. But it does mean that nutritional status is one piece of this puzzle and shouldn't be ignored. Another frequently underestimated sign appears in the mirror. Hair loss, brittle nails, and drier skin often lead to an immediate search for cosmetics or aesthetic treatments. However, hair, nails, and skin are among the tissues that reflect the body's nutritional status. When certain nutrients remain insufficient for prolonged periods, the body tends to direct its resources to vital organs, leaving structures considered less essential in the background. Something similar happens with the immune system. Frequent colds don't, in themselves, mean vitamin deficiency. Exposure to viruses, sleep quality, stress, and various health conditions directly influence immunity. Still, it is known that vitamins and minerals participate in the formation and functioning of immune cells. When a diet is deficient in micronutrients for an extended period, the immune response can be compromised, especially when other risk factors are also present. Perhaps the least noticed aspect is that related to the brain. Many people describe a feeling that is difficult to explain. It's not exactly a lack of intelligence or significant memory loss. It's as if thoughts take longer to organize. Attention fluctuates. Reasoning seems less agile. Motivation decreases. These symptoms have numerous possible causes and should never be automatically attributed to diet. However, science shows that several micronutrients participate in the production of neurotransmitters, communication between neurons, and brain metabolism. Just as a computer depends on various components working together, the brain also needs an adequate supply of nutrients to perform its functions efficiently. There is also another curious detail. Hidden hunger doesn't always cause hunger. This seems contradictory, but it makes sense. The brain has very efficient mechanisms to control energy needs. Identifying small deficiencies in vitamins and minerals is much more complex. Thus, a person can consume enough calories, or even in excess, and still ingest few micronutrients. That's why two dishes with the same number of calories can have completely different impacts on the body. A dish rich in varied foods, vegetables, fruits, beans, seeds, quality proteins, and minimally processed grains delivers a wide range of nutrients. Another dish based mainly on ultra-processed products may provide similar energy, but with a much lower nutritional density. The body perceives this difference, even if we don't immediately notice it. Another factor makes this scenario even harder to identify: the body's reserves. Some vitamins can be stored for weeks or months. Certain minerals have very efficient regulatory mechanisms. This means that an inadequate diet doesn't cause symptoms overnight. The consequences appear slowly, almost always silently. It is precisely this slowness that creates a false sense of security. When symptoms appear gradually, the human tendency is to consider them part of life. Energy levels decrease slightly this year. Concentration seems worse next year. Then come small changes in tests, greater difficulty exercising, or slower recovery after illness. Since none of these changes happen abruptly, few people connect the dots. But there's an even more surprising detail. Even healthcare professionals can't conclude that a deficiency exists simply by observing these signs. Many symptoms are non-specific and can be related to numerous different conditions. That's why diagnosis depends on clinical evaluation, dietary history, each person's context, and, when indicated, specific tests. This is one of the most important messages of this research. Listening to the body signals is fundamental, but interpreting them correctly is even more important. Not all fatigue is a nutritional deficiency. Not all deficiencies cause obvious symptoms. The reality is much more complex than simplistic promises or miraculous solutions make it seem. And it was precisely in trying to understand this complexity that science began to investigate a fascinating question. What really happens inside cells when vitamins and minerals are present in adequate amounts? And most importantly, what changes when they begin to be lacking, even if only slightly? The answers revealed a much more sophisticated functioning of the organism than most people imagine, and explain why nutrients measured in milligrams or even micrograms can have such a large impact on health throughout life. If it were possible to magnify the interior of a single human body cell millions of times, the scene would resemble a city that never sleeps. Proteins being produced non-stop. Molecules transporting energy from one place to another. Membranes controlling the entry and exit of substances. Repair systems correcting minor damage before it becomes a bigger problem. Chemical messengers carrying information between different structures. Everything working in perfect coordination. Now imagine gradually removing some of the tools necessary to keep this city running. The streets remain busy, the factories still work, but the processes begin to slow down. Some tasks cease to be performed with the same efficiency. Others begin to consume more resources. Little by little, small flaws accumulate. This is exactly how many scientists describe the role of micronutrients. Although needed in very small quantities, vitamins and minerals participate in virtually all major bodily functions. Instead of directly providing energy, as carbohydrates and fats do, they allow the body to transform that energy into movement, thought, growth, repair, and defense. This is a fundamental difference. Without gasoline, a car won't run. But without lubricating oil, coolant, a battery, and dozens of other components, it also won't function properly, even with a full tank. Human metabolism follows a similar logic. B vitamins, for example, act as cofactors in numerous chemical reactions related to food utilization. They help enzymes convert carbohydrates, fats, and proteins into energy usable by cells. When intake is insufficient for long periods, this process can lose efficiency, although the intensity of the effects depends on the degree of deficiency and the characteristics of each person. Iron plays another indispensable role. A large part of it participates in the formation of hemoglobin, the protein responsible for transporting oxygen through the blood. Without sufficient oxygen reaching the tissues, muscles and brain work less efficiently. This is why iron deficiency remains one of the most common nutritional deficiencies in the world, especially among children, adolescents, pregnant women, and women of reproductive age. Magnesium participates in hundreds of biochemical reactions related to muscle, nerve, and metabolic function. Zinc contributes to protein synthesis, wound healing, and immune response. Selenium acts in antioxidant systems that help protect cells from damage. Iodine is essential for the production of thyroid hormones, which regulate metabolism. Vitamin D plays an important role in bone and muscle health and also participates in mechanisms of the immune system. Vitamin B12 and folate are fundamental for the formation of blood cells and for the proper functioning of the nervous system. Each of these nutrients represents only a small piece of a gigantic puzzle. Interestingly, they rarely work alone. Many metabolic reactions depend on the simultaneous presence of different vitamins and minerals. In some situations, a deficiency of a single nutrient can compromise entire stages of biological processes. even if all the others are available. That's why researchers often talk about dietary patterns, not just isolated nutrients. In recent decades, large population studies have begun to show an intriguing reality. People who consume a greater variety of minimally processed foods, such as fruits, vegetables, legumes, beans, nuts, seeds, whole grains, fish, and other natural sources of nutrients, tend to have better health indicators over time. This doesn't mean there's a perfect food or a diet capable of preventing all diseases, but it reinforces the importance of the overall quality of food. At the same time, science has revealed another paradox. Excess weight does not protect against nutritional deficiencies. For a long time, it was believed that malnutrition was associated only with extreme thinness. Today, we know that these two conditions can coexist. A person can be obese and still have insufficient intake of certain micronutrients. This happens because calories and nutritional quality are different concepts. Imagine two people consuming exactly 2,000 calories a day. One of them bases their diet on fruits, vegetables, legumes, whole grains, varied proteins, and dairy products or equivalent alternatives. The other obtains a large portion of its calories through ultra-processed products rich in sugars, refined fats, and highly processed flours. Although the amount of energy is similar, the supply of vitamins, minerals, fiber, and bioactive compounds can be completely different. This discovery changed how experts evaluate nutrition. Today, there is increasing talk about nutritional density. In other words, how much a food delivers in terms of important nutrients relative to the amount of energy it provides. This shift in perspective helps explain why simply counting calories doesn't summarize the quality of a diet. But perhaps the greatest scientific advancement has been recognizing that nutrition doesn't function like a list of ingredients added to the body. For many years, it was believed that simply identifying an important nutrient and providing it in supplement form would reproduce the benefits observed in people with healthy diets. In some cases, this is indeed necessary and extremely effective, such as in diagnosed deficiencies or specific situations, including pregnancy, certain diseases, or dietary restrictions. In these contexts, supplementation can be crucial when indicated by a healthcare professional. However, for the general population, studies show a more complex scenario. The benefits observed in dietary patterns rich in natural foods are not always reproduced by the isolated consumption of capsules or tablets. This is because foods carry a combination of nutrients, fiber, and thousands of compounds that interact with each other in ways that science is still investigating. In other words, food works like an orchestra. It is not enough for a single instrument to play perfectly if the others are out of tune. Another important point revealed by research is that nutrient absorption also varies. Vitamin C can increase the absorption of iron present in plant-based foods. Some natural compounds, however, can reduce this absorption when consumed in the same meals. Certain vitamins depend on the presence of fat to be better utilized. Intestinal health, age, medications, and diseases also influence this process. That is, it's not just what's on the plate that matters. What the body can actually absorb and use matters. The more researchers study this system, the more evident one conclusion becomes. The human body is extraordinarily efficient, but also profoundly dependent on balance. And this leads to an inevitable question. If we are so well aware of the importance of micronutrients today, why do so many people continue to have insufficient intake of them? The answer lies not only in the science of nutrition, it is hidden in the most common habits of modern daily life. Habits so normal that we rarely realize the impact they have on our health over the years. If someone were to ask where hidden hunger originates, the most intuitive answer would be in the lack of food. But most of the time, it begins with decisions so common that they go completely unnoticed. It arises when haste replaces planning, when practicality wins over variety, when routine causes the same foods to appear on the plate, day after day, for months or even years. None of these choices seems dangerous in isolation. The problem lies in repetition. The human body has been shaped throughout evolution to deal with a huge diversity of foods. Different fruits ripened at different times. Leaves, seeds, roots, fish, and meats varied according to the season, the region, and the opportunities available. This alternation naturally increased the diversity of nutrients consumed. Today, paradoxically, we have many more options in supermarkets, but many people eat an extremely limited menu. Monday is like Tuesday. Tuesday is almost the same as Wednesday. Breakfast changes little. Lunch follows a fixed pattern. Snacks are always the same. The variety, which used to happen spontaneously, needs to be built consciously. And science shows that this diversity matters. Each food offers a different set of vitamins, minerals, fiber, and bioactive compounds. No single food can provide everything the body needs in ideal quantities. It is precisely the combination of different food groups that increases the likelihood of meeting nutritional needs over time. Another important factor is the growth in the consumption of ultra-processed foods. These products are developed to offer convenience, long shelf life, and often an extremely attractive combination of flavor, texture, and aroma. They can be part of the diet in different contexts, but when they come to occupy a large part of the diet, they tend to replace foods naturally rich in micronutrients. The problem, therefore, is not always what has been added to the plate. Often, it's what's missing from the diet. When fruits give way to processed desserts, when vegetables disappear from lunch, when beans, nuts, seeds, or greens go days without being eaten, when complete meals are repeatedly replaced by quick snacks. The deficiency arises not from a single excess, but from a succession of absences. There is also a phenomenon known to nutritionists as empty calories. This term doesn't mean that a particular food is completely devoid of nutrients, but describes products that provide a lot of energy relative to the amount of vitamins, minerals, and fiber they offer. In a routine where a large part of the calories come from these foods, it becomes more difficult to achieve good nutritional density. Another detail rarely remembered is related to food preparation. Vitamins are delicate molecules. Some are sensitive to heat. Others can be lost in cooking water or during long periods of storage. This doesn't mean that cooked foods are inferior to raw ones. Many vegetables, in fact, make some nutrients more available after cooking. The main point is that different preparation methods modify the amount of nutrients available, reinforcing the importance of a varied diet. But the story doesn't end in the kitchen. Even a good quality diet may not be fully utilized by the body. The intestine plays a decisive role in this process. It is there that a large part of nutrient absorption occurs. Conditions that affect intestinal health. Some inflammatory diseases, alterations in the microbiota, digestive surgeries, and even certain medications can reduce the absorption of vitamins and minerals. In some cases, the person consumes adequate amounts, but the body cannot fully utilize them. Age also modifies this equation. With aging, physiological changes can reduce the absorption of some nutrients, such as vitamin B12. Appetite may decrease. Chewing becomes more difficult for some people. Changes in taste also influence food choices. All this increases the need to pay attention to diet quality. Another silent character in this story is chronic stress. Although it doesn't directly consume vitamins, as is sometimes simplistically portrayed, stress influences behaviors that affect eating habits. People under constant pressure tend to cook less, sleep worse, exercise less, and more frequently resort to highly palatable foods for convenience or emotional comfort. Insufficient sleep follows a similar logic. Sleeping too little alters hormones related to appetite, increases the desire for higher calorie foods, and makes it difficult to make balanced food choices the next day. Thus, a habit seemingly disconnected from nutrition ends up influencing the quality of food over time. There is also an important cultural aspect. For decades, we have learned to evaluate meals mainly by quantity. A full plate usually conveys the idea of good nutrition. An overweight person is rarely seen as someone who may have nutritional deficiencies, but this perception ignores an essential difference between quantity and quality. It is possible to ingest enough energy without achieving an adequate intake of micronutrients. This is perhaps one of the biggest paradigm shifts in modern nutrition. Eating more does not necessarily mean nourishing better. At the same time, seeking a nutrient-rich diet does not mean pursuing perfection. No single meal determines a person's health. No single food causes deficiency or solves all problems. What truly matters is the dietary pattern built up over weeks, months, and years. It is repetition that shapes the organism. Just as small daily savings can build wealth in the future, small, repeated food choices gradually build the body's nutritional reserves. This perspective completely changes how we view food. Instead of looking for a superfood or a miracle supplement, the question becomes how to make the overall diet richer, more diverse, and more nutritious. Fortunately, the answer doesn't depend on exotic ingredients, extremely restrictive diets, or radical changes. In many cases, it lies in simple, sustainable adjustments supported by the best available scientific evidence. That's precisely what we'll see next. After going through all this research, perhaps the most surprising conclusion is also the simplest. Hidden hunger rarely appears overnight, nor does it disappear overnight. Just as it was built up by hundreds or thousands of small, repeated choices over the years, its prevention happens in exactly the same way, through consistent, realistic, and sustainable habits. The first change begins with a new question when faced with the plate. Instead of just thinking, how much am I going to eat? It's worth asking, how much variety is there in this meal? Dietary diversity remains one of the most solid strategies, supported by scientific evidence, for naturally increasing micronutrient intake. The greater the variety of fruits, vegetables, legumes, whole grains, nuts, seeds, and good quality protein sources throughout the week, the greater the diversity of vitamins, minerals, fiber, and bioactive compounds offered to the body. This doesn't mean that every meal needs to be perfect. Balance is built on the overall diet. A different salad today, a fruit that isn't normally part of your routine tomorrow, a different type of bean next week, a handful of nuts some days. Small changes, when repeated over months and years, become much more powerful than radical transformations that last only a few days. Another important strategy is to reduce dietary monotony. In modern supermarkets, it's easy to always buy exactly the same products. The brain likes familiarity. It saves time and effort, but the body benefits from diversity. Each color found in fruits and vegetables usually represents different groups of natural compounds produced by the plants themselves. Although no single food contains all of them, expanding this variety increases. The nutritional richness of the diet as a whole is important. It's also worth noting what has slowly disappeared from the plate. Many families have reduced their consumption of beans, lentils, peas, and other legumes. Others have started consuming far fewer vegetables than previous generations. In some cases, fruits have been replaced by processed products advertised as equivalents, even though they have quite different nutritional characteristics. Recovering some of these traditional habits can be a simple and efficient strategy. Another important point is to avoid the trap of quick fixes. The internet is full of promises of supplements capable of increasing energy, strengthening immunity, improving memory, or slowing aging. In certain situations, supplements are essential and can bring great benefits when there is a diagnosed deficiency or a specific need. Pregnant women, the elderly, people with certain diseases, dietary restrictions, or alterations in intestinal absorption often require individualized monitoring. But for those who do not have a clear indication, science recommends caution. More doesn't always mean better. Some micronutrients can be harmful when consumed in excess. Others can interact with medications or mask problems that need to be investigated. Therefore, supplementation should complement a strategy of health should never replace a balanced diet. It's also important to remember that nutrition doesn't work in isolation. Regular physical activity improves metabolic function. Adequate sleep promotes more conscious food choices. Controlling stress helps reduce impulsive eating behaviors. Maintaining medical follow-up when necessary allows for the early identification of conditions that affect nutrient absorption. Everything is connected. In practice, building good nutrition means taking care of the whole, not just a single detail. Upon reaching the end of this investigation, we realize that hidden hunger represents one of the greatest paradoxes of modern life. We live in an era of unprecedented food abundance. The shelves are full. The options seem endless. It has never been so easy to consume calories, but it has never been so important to reflect on the quality of those calories. True nutrition is not measured solely by the size of the plate. It is measured by the ability of that food to provide the body with the resources necessary for billions of cells to continue performing their silent work every day. And perhaps that is precisely why hidden hunger remains so invisible. It doesn't necessarily cause an intense feeling of hunger. It manifests itself in small signs that are often ignored. In the energy that seems never to arrive, it's not enough. It's about slowly declining energy levels. It's about slower recovery. It's about a diet that seems adequate on the outside, but gradually leaves significant gaps on the inside. The good news is that this knowledge gives back something very valuable: the possibility of making more conscious choices. There is no perfect food. There is no perfect diet. There is no supplement capable of compensating for all bad habits. There is, however, a dietary pattern built daily, and it is this pattern that gradually influences health throughout life. If there is one message that deserves to remain after this documentary, it is this: eating well goes far beyond satisfying hunger. It's about offering the body what it really needs to function in the best possible way. Before we finish, tell us in the comments, what discovery caught your attention the most? Had you heard of hidden hunger, or did you believe that malnutrition only happened when there was a lack of food? If this documentary helped you see food from a new perspective, share it with someone who could also benefit from this information. Your support helps this content reach more people interested in science and evidence-based health. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, so you won't miss our upcoming investigations into nutrition, metabolism, and quality of life. And in the next documentary, we'll explore another topic that also raises many questions. Do all foods considered healthy really work the same way for everyone? The answer may be much more complex and interesting than it seems. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.